Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here. We should have, nope. Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here. So a camera cut off again because it got too hot. I took the battery out. We should hopefully be able to get through this. Man is isolated from nature. He is superior to it. Nature is a hostile force opposed to human beings and ever ready to absorb the unwary individual. Nature calls him to succumb to its oblivion, and man must fight this by continually striving to develop his isolation and self-sufficiency. In the reality of most Native Americans, however, man is not an isolated and self-sufficient unit of existence. Man is a group being and dependent not only on others, but on the earth. Survival depends not on competition, but on cooperation. Man is not a being in opposition to nature, but a part of it. Nature gives him his subsistence, the group gives him his identity. Just as man owes something to his fellows, he feels indebted to the earth. Earth is the context of his being. He and the context he exists in are one. There is no existence for man outside of that context, right? Environmental, what environs on the mental conscious experience. The ethical system of the Native American extends beyond man's relationship with others and the institutions that men create. The Native American includes the earth and everything in it in his ethical system. This is a very important fact in determining the well-being of a man. Silko demonstrates this extension of values. Sorry, hold on. If I open this up, it should cool off better until we get done. Silko demonstrates this extension of values when she has her main character blame himself for a drought that covers his home area. He is convinced that his behavior, consorting with the enemy, the white man, by participating in his war, has led to his failure to observe the ceremonies and behaviors that would have ensured the earth's fertility. He is guilt-stricken. The universe of the Native American is based on the concept of harmony. This leads to the idea that man, a part of that universe, must adapt himself to and be responsible for the continuing harmony he sees about him. There is no sense of man needing to war against nature or having to purchase his existence in competition with his fellows. Harmony, evidenced in the benefits of cooperation with his group and in man's ability to adapt to changing circumstances in his environment, the seasons and the change of lifestyles required year in and year out, is in his eyes the right behavior. The war against nature is seen as wrong, futile and destructive. Competition with others is wrong because it leads to disharmony, isolation, selfishness, pain to others. The psychological theories of the European do not take into account these particular realities of the Native American because they are outside the frame of reference of the European. European psychological theories are directed to adjusting the mentally ill person to a European reality that stresses man's superiority to nature, his self-sufficiency, his independence, and the need to acquire, that is, enforce, these latter two through conflict with others. European psychologies are predicated on the alienation of the individual. Ironically, near total self-sufficiency and independence are methods developed to deal with the effects of alienation, but since they are themselves also a cause of alienation, their reinforcement serves merely to provide a buffer for the individual against the inroads of others. These methods do not eradicate alienation, they provide one with the strength to accept and live with alienation. The comma's in the wrong place there. The native, when confronted with such, quote, cures, is actually being coerced into participating in the cause of his own distress. Alien is not a part of his mental makeup as it is in the European. The native's own reality of oneness with nature, of responsibility to the earth and to man, is overlooked, discounted. It is irrelevant to the therapist and the world he is committed to. He literally does not see the world of the native. The, quote, fog that rises between the Native American and the European world is a clash of realities. There is much support for European reality. Theirs is the dominant culture Theirs is the dominant culture. The native confronts this alien reality from an early age through a system of compulsory education. He is taught that the earth is raw material, an enemy to be conquered and used. Each of his fellows is a potential enemy, a competitor in a war of survival. Cooperation, when it enters at all, is not a way of life, but a means of compromising in order to achieve the ends of the isolated individual. This is Hobbes's view, right? The social contract. The native is subjected to these denials of his reality through all his classroom days. All right, we're going to pick this up and walk with it because I don't want the camera to overheat, and I want to go down to the river in preparation for the next part. All right, so that's that. Cool. Come on, Winchester. Let's go. Come on. So the path for it was over here. If this ends up being long enough for another episode, we'll do that. But hopefully we can get it in that single hour frame. Oop. Come on. Look at these blossoms, guys. These new branches, they're all white and pretty before they turn green. Maybe after they turn green. See how nice this is? So I think I'll just stand for the remainder of this. I want to make sure it looks right. It looks cool. Yeah, this is good. And I think if I stand right here, it'll be fine. All right, he's getting some water. So we're going to shift our angle of approach ever so slightly. Ugh. I might need to change the that, maybe. Okay. I thought about sitting somewhere too. I could sit right there. Cool. Outside of the classroom, his reality, the sanctity and meaningfulness of the earth, is literally covered over. More concrete, more asphalt means progress. This covering of the earth provides a guarded path on which the European may tread without fear of the wildness and vagaries of the hostile planet. What natural vegetation is allowed is trimmed, controlled, subjected to man's whims. In the process of paving the earth, the reality of the native is covered over, made insignificant. Quote, meaning is presumed to lie in concrete, glass, iron, measured geometric spaces, and artificial suns to ward off the night. Little wonder that the native begins to be consumed by a feeling of invisibility. His reality, whoa. Go. Go up there then. Go. Stay. Stay. Good boy. His reality, his world, is literally lost from sight. And since his identity is so intricately wound into that of the earth, so too is his identity threatened. Too often, Native American responds to this rising, quote, fog by seeking oblivion in alcohol, drugs, and suicide. He responds by striking out in violence, battering at the fog he sees enveloping his world, his loved ones. Still another response is to go through the fog to the reality that it represents, the white world, committing oneself to an endless denial of what once was. There are no psychologies directed to making the native aware of the existence of two realities in his field of choices, since psychologies are always from a European perspective. The European psychologies make him aware of one, his primitive, uncivilized, non-progressive nature, an unreality in the eyes of the European, and two, the civilized, progressive, alienated lifestyle that the European calls reality. In this frame of reference, there is only one choice, European reality. Native reality is not a choice, but a, quote, regression. A European psychologist can no more encourage this than he could the, quote, reality of one of his own who has slipped into a world of, quote, paranoid fantasy. Quote, what is reality is a question dealt with only superficially by the European psychologist. He knows, quote unquote, what reality is, and is barred by that sense of reality from being aware of another. The questions that go assumed without ever being noticed or asked, as she described the worldview before. In fact, a confrontation with another reality would be threatening to him. European man is no more capable of coping with threats to his reality than is the native. But Euro man has more, quote, tools with which to bolster and, quote, prove his reality. The most important being the, quote, education of natives, that is, emphasizing the reality of European knowledge over that of the native. The native's existence, if dealt with at all, is usually relegated to being an anachronistic example of, quote, previous and, quote, less advanced lifestyles. European man copes with other realities by absorbing them into his own frame of reference, thereby eradicating what he might interpret as being threatening to his own reality. The ramifications of Euroman's clinging to his own reality are detrimental to the native when the two must confront one another. They lead to extermination of cultures and judgments about the behavior of natives based on a value system that is alien to the native. The examples of this are many. The, quote, Indian who fails to accept European ideas is, quote, less developed than one who does. The natives need to synthesize knowledge into one holistic system, which is a different kind of monism than the monism that needs to make everybody follow the same system, which is consistent with this holistic view of the universe, is seen as an inability to be objective, quote unquote, and quote unquote analytical. A native who committing a wrong and believing that there are consequences to, quote, disharmonious behavior, readily admits to his behavior or adjusts his response to the expectation of his inquisitor in order not to pile up, quote, disharmonies, is viewed as, quote, without conscience. The native who sets a great value on self-discipline is seen as, quote, cold, quote, lacking in emotion, because he does not act in conformance with the behavior of his European conquerors who depend less on self-discipline than on, quote, law or external discipline. The list is endless and serves merely to point to those confrontations that are a result when two realities clash. The solution may possibly await the enlightenment of European psychologists finally able to confront the relativism of what is called, quote, reality, or the entering of natives already so enlightened into the field. Perhaps also Leslie Silko might divulge the identity of her unorthodox medicine man who so successfully brought one Native American out of the fog and into awareness of the choices open to the native. I eagerly await her next novel, for the poet often points to a truth that escapes the scientist. Chapter 7 of part 3, and it's the poem, and it's very short, and we'll go after that. Artesian Spring, a poem. Along with her academic articles about the nature of reality, and this is from the editors, Viola Cordova left us a poem that brings her ideas beautifully to life. After all is said and done, Here is what is real, the laughter of horses and cold water flowing from the ground. The real world, the ground under our feet, is full of wonder and meaning. The editors. And, yeah, this water is really crisp and cold. I mean, it's I don't know what the temperature is here, but my car was telling me it was like 31. My watch and my phone can't tell me right now because I don't have service. So here's the poem, Artesian Spring. I think it's beautiful. And I really appreciate that she wrote it. Towards the end of May, there's a lot in this poem that resonates with where I'm at in my life right now. Towards the end of May, when spring was safely in place, the snow given way to the first wild flowers. We hiked over the ridge which hovered over the small Wyoming town. Over the ridge were the artesian springs where wild horses wintered. The neighborhood children gathered in the early morning, comparing foodstuffs, knives, and thin rope. Our survival gear for a day's hike. The older children gave admonitions to the younger, discouraged the youngest with descriptions of extreme rigor ahead. And then we were ready. The wild horses, covered with clumps of falling winter coats, had, we hoped, not yet embarked on their summer travels. Every step of the way was described beforehand. There's Camel Rock. Remember when we found the Jerusalem cricket nest? And the old twisted juniper growing out of the sandstone. And the sage grouse mating grounds, where the males paraded and stomped and flapped their chest sacks. And the lava tube. The lava tube was an ancient remnant with a collapsed roof. We hiked over sharp rocks, clinging to equally sharp sides, and laughed gleefully over the surviving snow on its floor. Even in July, the middle of July, claimed the older children, there is snow in the old tube. The younger, in awe, believed the tale. Outside the tube. Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here. I just say that every time I press record. The GoPro ran out of batteries, so I came back to the car and got the other battery. I couldn't bring them with me when I started recording because I was charging them still. But we are going back to the river now. I'll do the whole poem again. Winchester. Gotta get the bear keg, some other stuff from over here. So, it must be my bear horn. I grab that. Probably don't want it in the bear keg in general, but, wow. Bro just did a straight roll. Come on. Can't get up? You doofus. Let's go. Bro, get up. Come on.
that works, I guess. Come back. Stop. So I guess you guys got to see all that. Come on. I'm going to take a look at the balance on this thing. Maybe he'll keep it balanced by doing that, but go. Come on. Alright, so we're back to the bear keg. I think I will probably make this 2 episodes. Stay. Stay. I forgot they're actually recording while I'm doing this. So we set the bear horn there. And we're going to start that poem, and it's such a lovely poem. Artesian Spring, a poem. Towards the end of May, when spring was safely in place, the snow given way to the first wild flowers, we hiked over the ridge which hovered over the small Wyoming town. Over the ridge were the artesian springs where wild horses wintered. The neighborhood children gathered in the early morning, comparing foodstuffs, knives, and thin rope, our survival gear for a day's hike. The older children gave admonitions to the younger, discouraged the youngest with descriptions of extreme rigor ahead. And then we were ready. The wild horses, covered with clumps of falling winter coats, had, we hoped, not yet embarked on their summer travels. Guys, look at him. Look at how precious he is. The wild horses, covered with clumps of falling winter coats, had we hoped not yet embarked on their summer travels. Every step of the way was described beforehand. There's Camel Rock. Remember when we found the Jerusalem cricket nest? And the old twisted juniper growing out of the sandstone, and the sage grouse mating grounds, where the males paraded and stomped and flapped their chest sacs. And the lava tube. The lava tube was an ancient remnant with a collapsed roof. We hiked over sharp rocks, clinging to equally sharp sides, and laughed gleefully over the surviving snow on its floor. Even in July, the middle of July, claimed the older children, there is snow in the old tube. The younger, in awe, believed the tale. Outside the tube, silence prevailed. Instructions, softly whispered, so as not to scare the horses. We heard our heartbeats, felt the warmth of our excitement, and heard the gentle burbling of the artesian springs, the soft, contented snorting of a feeding horse. They were here. They were still here. Silently, ever so silently, from an embankment of weathered sandstone which would cover, we thought, our presence, we peered at the small herd. Their manes hung over their eyes in matted clumps. From their bodies, the winter coat clung to freshly appearing summer hair. They pawed at the damp ground for fresh greens. Then grew alert at our presence. There was a whinny, a toss of a head. One or two moved away from the embankment. We watched in silence and in stillness. Equally silently, now cramped from long immobility, we crawled in pairs, in single file, back to the tube. And our voices came back. We saw them. We actually saw them. Did you see the pinto with the clumpy feet? Like bedroom slippers. And the black one that looked like it had rolled in the mud? And the water, the marvel of water appearing out of the ground, clean and clear and singing. Where did it come from? Out of the ground, the older children solemnly pronounced. It comes by itself out of the ground. Can we drink it? Afterwards, they said. After the horses move away. Once, I said, when we first moved here, we lived in the very last house on the top of the hill. My mother was recovering from diphtheria. She couldn't walk across an entire room. She woke up in the middle of the night, I thought, but it could have been in the early morning hours. She was crying, and my grandmother was holding her. My mother thought someone was laughing at her because she couldn't walk. She heard the laughing. Shh, my grandmother murmured. It was horses, the wild horses. And I heard them too, and my mother crying softly. My grandmother brought us each a glass of cold water. So she's talking about decline and death and the terror of it, the beauty of the world and the terror of dying. 4. What is it to be human? We have what looks like a raven above us. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm trying to get it up in the sky. But, whew, that sneeze. 4. What is it? Part 4. What is it to be human? Who are we? How do we become human? Of what memories and stories, relations and responsibilities, affirmations and refusals, substance and spirit are we made? How do our relationships to others shape who we are, or our relationships to the earth and the sun and the web of life? How are a Native American's views of himself or herself different from Christian views. Who has the right to define who Native Americans are? Noble savages, Injuns, INJUNS, which is like how it's spelt in like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain, an old long time ago. Noble savages, Injuns, archetypes, artifacts, subjects of anthropological study. How can we reclaim our identities and the right to shape our own destinies? So again, it starts with a poem, and it has some prose after that, and that's the last poem. I wish we could linger here for a bit, and we certainly can. But it's 9:30 for me, almost 9:35, and got about a 7.5-hour drive on the road for me today. I want to get to my next campsite early. I may want to stop and do something. It may take longer than I expect. I know we're going to have some really beautiful drives to record, so thank you guys for being here. So there's the dog tax, the river tax, the sun tax. Just me wanting to share it with you. This is the road up ahead, above. And yeah, there's like falling rock. It was a lot of ups and downs. I'm doing engine braking. Engine braking is cool. It's where you use I have an automatic, but I switch over to manual and drop it into a low gear. I still try to use my brake pads as needed, but there's so much downhill that it just would wear through a brake pad. Really unsafe to try to... You don't have a lot of control when you're using your brakes either, but when you're just in second or third gear and you can't pick up any speed, you have a decent amount of control. It's really slow. So yeah, I am going to split these into two, so that's why I'm taking a minute to enjoy this. Is there anything else? We're not going to go back to Mesa Verde. I'm going to go back some other time when I do, like I said, some Southwest stuff. Our next place shouldn't be high altitude or have risk of bears. It's supposed to be really hot and dry. And I think what we're going to see today is a lot of that kind of stuff. And then North Utah will be alpine-ish again, and then we'll get up to Idaho and Wyoming for the Tetons. So I'm just enjoying the water. All right, you guys. Take care. See you around. Thanks for being here. Bye.